Hello folks, so I recently managed to weasel my way into the closed beta for Where Winds Meet, which started on the 24th of July and wrapped up sometime around the 31st. I had no idea what kind of game I was getting into. I did practically zero research outside of scrolling through the Steam page, and other than the vague idea of knowing it was somewhat of an action RPG, I basically went in about as blind as anyone possibly could have. After racking up close to 30 hours or so, and finally sifting through all of the footage I had collected, I bring this video today to basically explain exactly what Where Winds Meet is, and exactly what we can all expect from the gameplay and overall progression through the game. So, to briefly explain just what this game is, Where Winds Meet is a single-player / MMO open-world action RPG set in a reimagined version of China in the late 10 Periods Kingdom with heavy wuxia vibes that allows you to create your own male or female character, focusing mostly on fast-paced and heavily stylized reaction-based combat, whilst offering a very vast and rich open world that we can explore by wall running, climbing, leaping, riding, running on water, or even flying through the air. The game can be played and seamlessly switch between single-player or multiplayer modes from the very start right through to the end, and this consists of co-op exploration and missions, PvP, guilds, tournaments, etc. And outside of this, we also have base building, professions, minigames, crafting, factions, etc., all blended together to create an experience quite unlike anything else I've ever played. So, to start off with the overall flow of the game, it can be a little bit confusing to begin with. You're given full control very early on, and it's not long before all manner of objectives such as the main story, side quests, points of interest, etc. all start stacking up. But to explain it simply, at its core, we have a main campaign available, fleshed out with cutscenes and what appears to be quite a deep narrative. Layered on top of this are a range of various different quest types, such as side story, light and shadow, sentient beings, wandering tales, and outposts, all of which grant various different rewards and will likely be required in order to progress many different types of quests, essentially doing what all MMORPGs do with their quest setups. However, the main story does appear to be far more fleshed out and a lot more comparable to a single-player game, rather than a typical MMO. The quests themselves range from full-blown dungeon dives involving puzzles, traps, and bosses, to simple fishing competitions or observing others in order to acquire new martial arts skills. At first, I couldn't tell if the game was struggling with its identity, or if it was just embracing many different mechanics so as to keep the playing field fresh and constantly diverse, but there was honestly tons of different things to do, and outside of the quests, I was constantly finding rare collectibles, puzzles, and mini-games that granted other unique rewards, and were also very important for overall progression. Speaking of exploration, it naturally plays an essential role within this game, and I'm very glad to say we have a ton of movement options available. We're given triple jump and dash right from the beginning, as well as wall running, climbing, etc. But by progressing specific quests, we can begin to learn other abilities such as diving underwater, running on water, or even leaping through the air to travel very large distances almost instantly. Outside of this, the world map is fully fleshed out, and we can travel from many different points of interests if we have first discovered them. Overall, the movement felt very fleshed out and rewarding. I couldn't actually believe some of the options available, and I had a lot of fun exploring the map and treating it like one big playground. Now, one of the most important components to any action RPG would be its combat. Within Where Winds Meet, we have a typical action RPG setup that gives us access to a light attack, heavy attack, charged attacks, dodges, blocks, and parrying, whilst also giving us 3 unique weapon skills and I think 8 or possibly more combat abilities, making the overall options available quite deep. Enemies have 2 types of unique attacks. Red attacks deal significantly more damage, but can be parried for very good counter attacks, and yellow attacks must be dodged and also deal quite significant damage. The weapon skills and characters' martial arts abilities overall blend into a very deep and nuanced playing field, allowing you to seamlessly switch between and blend various different playstyles and tactics, such as ranged, defensive, lifesteal, and hit and run, or buffing, debuffing, displacing, repositioning, etc. For instance, I gradually began to lean into dual blades for its lifesteal, maneuverability, and high single target damage, whilst I also used the heavy sword for defensive and strong area of effect options, allowing me to use the greatsword's bubble shield, but whilst wielding dual blades with the lifesteal buff active. Overall, I honestly didn't get long enough to even scratch the surface here, but I can say that I'm very excited to get back in and continue down the rabbit hole. I was overwhelmed with all of the different options available, and I didn't even get a chance to unlock half of the other weapon types during my time. So, to comment on what I actually did see and experience, everything does look very promising thus far. Combat is fast-paced and full to the brim with depth. Reaction-based mechanics seem to shine through, making the combat more responsive and less button-bashy than you'd think. It also feels very smooth, and the overall ebb and flow is very satisfying once you begin to correctly chain your arsenal of skills and abilities together. Now, as for the actual weapons themselves, there are 7 types available, and as mentioned before, they do all come with their own unique playstyle, and those 7 types would be sword, spear, dual blades, glaive, fan, umbrella, and rope dart. As an example, glaives are defensive, slower than other weapons, and are best used against groups of enemies or for tanking damage, whilst the umbrella is more of a ranged weapon, offering solid mobility and ranged options. Of course, we do have character abilities available too, which are not tied to the weapons, allowing for much more freedom around weapon choice. We also have 2 weapon slots available that can be switched between whenever we like, but after a short period of progression, you will unlock a unique attack that allows you to switch between these weapons seamlessly, whilst also still attacking. Weapon types can be upgraded, resulting in all weapons of that particular type being stronger as and when you find them, and elemental damage, buffing, and upgrading your individual weapons, etc., are also mechanics found within the game. Now, we've touched on the abilities already, but I believe we can unlock up to 8 individual slots, and all of these abilities do appear to have uses both inside and outside of combat. We can learn them in all manner of different ways, and due to their unique properties, they do often find themselves being required for further progression elsewhere. For instance, Tai Chi can be used to grab and throw enemies, and thus can be used to destroy certain terrain and unlock secret passages or treasure. Overall, with the weapons, skills, abilities, and core combat mechanics combined, there is an absolute ton of depth to this game's combat system, where both fans of action RPGs and Souls-likes will find some semblance of familiar territory. Now, we won't spend very long here, as I'm working on much deeper videos for everything already mentioned, and also the gear, but to touch on this very briefly, gear does come in sets, offering various different set bonuses. We have 4 main armor slots with 3 unique accessory slots that are all different from one another, and then we have 2 weapon slots and a ranged weapon slot also. I ended up breezing through a lot of the beginner gear and just equipping whatever had the best stats, but I could see that the setup was very typical of an MMO, with all of its multiple layers surrounding gear slots, individual pieces, set bonuses, etc. And overall, you should expect very typical MMO levels of experimenting and building. Now, as previously mentioned, we do have the choice of either male or female characters, with a full character customization from pretty much the beginning of the game, allowing for tons of different options, as well as a range of different presets both in-game and by the community. I didn't spend too long here, as I didn't want to waste the potential hours that I could have within the closed beta, but I did skim through, and the variety of options was very nice to see, and overall, I don't think anyone will have any complaints. This also applies to cutscenes. If you don't get too silly within the character customization, then your own character does look quite well animated and not out of place at all. Beyond this, the game does of course have a wealth of different customization options available, as can be expected with an MMO. These are all separate from the actual equipped gear, meaning you can look nice and pretty regardless of the stats. During the beta, I had a wealth of events available that granted unique appearance rewards. However, it also granted premium currencies and rewards that could be rolled for additional items, or could be used to simply purchase whatever set or individual items I wanted. Now, as for how egregious or forgiving this store may be, Where Winds Meet is actually going to be a free-to-play game, and during the beta, we only had limited access to the store, with of course an abundance of currencies available to acquire and use. As for how things will actually operate upon launch, we really do not know. Although the store mostly consisted of cosmetic items, the game does feature an energy system that is required to loot certain end mission chests, and there is an item within the store to replenish this energy, insinuating that pay-to-win elements could very well exist. I didn't spend too much time with the store or the battle pass, and I wouldn't like to make any guesses on something that is yet to be fully shown, so as far as monetization and the store are concerned, we will just have to wait and see. Now, for the final segment, we do of course have MMO Elements, and despite wanting to be brief here, I will do my best to explain pretty much everything available. So outside of everything already mentioned, we do of course have the options of seamlessly switching between the single player and completely isolated experience, with the option to invite players to certain missions or world events, or we have the completely separate multiplayer mode, which works almost like any other MMORPG, allowing you to mingle and interact with hundreds and thousands of other players online. Beyond this, we have world events, guilds, guild events, PvP, up to 10 player raids, factions, and various other features that you would typically find inside of an MMO. Now, of course, you can choose to ignore all of this and spend your time exclusively just within the single player, or alternatively, you can choose to do the opposite and play exclusively just in multiplayer. Or as a third option, you can change whenever you like from within game, depending on your particular mood. Overall, I think the game being built around both a single player and MMORPG experience, and with it being a free to play game, will definitely help strengthen its appeal to a much wider audience than either a single player or MMORPG typically would. I like both styles of game, so that's likely why this game appeals to myself so much. It's not only very fleshed out with its single player questline, but it's blended many MMORPG elements into the open world experience, somehow merging the two, and instead of confusing its identity, I feel it has somehow taken many different elements and blended them together to craft a truly unique and rewarding experience. Add to this that the game runs relatively well and looks absolutely gorgeous almost all of the time. I won't judge performance on the closed beta because we still don't have a release date, but regardless of some textures and performance issues, overall it did look and run really well. So, in summary, if it wasn't already obvious, then I definitely recommend this game. It will be releasing sometime this year, but we do not have an exact date. Available platforms will be PC and PlayStation 5, with no mention on Xbox whatsoever. The previous closed beta was announced as their last. Whether they have an open beta or not, that's yet to be seen or confirmed, but I will be covering this game's pre and post development from here on out, so stick around for more of the same moving forward, because I've got plenty more currently being worked on. But otherwise, that would be it for this one, folks. I'll be back over the next day or so with more Where Winds Meet, Wu Chang, and Kazan. And I do, of course, have a range of guides and news videos on the channel already, so do feel free to stop on by and check things out. Otherwise, thanks for watching, folks. And until next time, peace.